being in church all my life, I'm very familiar with the discipleship programs and the next step pathways and the growth and development opportunities that we generally offer. And they're focused, in my mind, on knowledge first and foremost, but on the church context itself. And what is so distinct about Seed is that it's specifically not that. It's specifically focused on our context in the world, which is where we find ourselves, and it's where God's placed us. And so trying to bring what we know from our lives in church and what we know from biblical principles and who God's crafted us to be, and bringing that really intentionally into where He's placed us in the marketplace. I haven't seen anything like that before. I very much came to this course with a perception in my mind that my church life and ministry was one bucket, and my work life and what I was doing at work and in my career was another. And I didn't have the skills or even probably the language at that stage to combine and understand that God so sees them as aligned. And even as I started to do some of the pre-reading and reading through books like Every Good Endeavour and Workmanship, even just initially shifting that understanding and opening myself to see that actually every moment and everything I do in my work context is also God moving. So I'd just come back from finishing my master's overseas and started a new job in a financial services company, which was new for me because I'd only ever worked previously in government. And so it was a new context that I found myself in. And I think part of it, and part of why Seed so attracted me, was because being in a new context, the program was crafted to help me look intentionally at that context and to see what there was there for me that I should be paying attention to. I think first and foremost, I've always believed in the power of community, and I've seen the impact of simply having a group of like-minded people around you, people who maybe share some common experiences or aspirations, but there's power in coming together and sharing experience. And so I'm always naturally inclined to get involved in community, to be part of sharing experiences with other people, to learn and grow together. Having an 18-month period in this program, initially I was a bit puzzled by that, to be honest, but as we're moving through it, I can see how that length of time is really valuable, and I can see how I'm taking steps throughout that period, and God's evolving and changing things in my thinking and in the way I do life over that period. I think having that finite and shorter period is great for some things, but I think the length of this course is really allowing us to grow and develop over time and to soak in the experience that God's got us engaged in. I think this initial period of the program for me has really been God focusing on my character and building my character, and then starting to refine the vision and the purpose and the future that He has for me and how I see that. And as I've gone through that process of allowing God to really build my character in that sense, I think I've become, in my work context, much more focused on what matters in that way, but also able to see more of the bigger picture of what God's doing in my work context, but also in the lives of people around me. but I also feel like I've, in a sense, slowed down and been able to be a bit more still as I am in that context, which I think is crucial if we're going to be intentional and be purposeful about bringing God into work. So at the very start of the program, we went through that process of really looking at where we're at in terms of our spiritual formation, and going through that process of looking at our personal development plan and how we wanted to move through this next 18 months. And while initially that sort of audit approach to who I am and my spirituality and my relationship with God felt a bit confronting, it's a fabulous first step. Through that process, I looked into some spiritual disciplines, and even simple spiritual disciplines of having some sort of Sabbath, and having some sort of stillness and quietness in my life, have been really valuable, and they've transformed, I think, my character, but also the substance of how I live out my life and how I'm received and perceived in the world, through making those internal changes. We did a session a couple of weeks ago about rhythms in our life, and having that rhythm of work and rest, and that's something that I think has really been important for me to think about, and I think it's made, as I've tried to implement that and be conscious of it, it's made a tangible difference to how I show up. I have felt a sense of confidence in where I am and where God's placed me and what I'm there to do that I didn't have before. And I think that's been really crucial, because whereas before maybe there was always a thought in the back of my mind that I was doing this job and it was important and edifying and paid a salary and all those sorts of things, but it wasn't really what God had for me. And so having changed my thinking about that has enabled me to be more fully in my work, and to stand in that confidence and authority in what I'm doing day to day in work. If we can really engage in what this program has for us, and if we can commit ourselves to the deep transformative process that is available, then I think God has a journey for us through this program. And that's certainly been my experience. Even in the 6 months so far, I have seen my character transformed, and I have seen that change the impact I have in work and the way I show up at work. And I think more importantly, I have developed a sense of confidence in how I work, in how I walk into that marketplace, which I didn't have before. And so even in the 6 months or so of this program, if I now engage in my work with a godly confidence that I didn't have before, I think that's a huge outcome. Hearing from people who've gone before us in terms of stepping out to do something for God in the marketplace, and in following godly plans and purposes in their work, having that around me at this time as I look to what God has for me in those next steps, and as I try and get the bravery and the courage I need to take those next steps, that's crucial, because it shows us the path ahead, and it shows us that it can be done, and it lights the way.